Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the President and the Executive Committee of the chapter to the webinar conducted by CS Sri Lanka chapter of Western Region KSA. For today's session, we have CA members joining us from Sri Lanka, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Riyadh, and Dammam KSA. We also have members of other accounting bodies and colleagues from other professional bodies participating. I thank you all on behalf of the chapter for accepting our invitation and joining with us today. CS Sri Lanka members, please type in your name and membership number in the chat box. Participants, please feel free to post your questions relevant to today's topic in Q&A box. Our panelist today is Chaminda Kumarasiri. Chaminda is the chairman, principal consultant at HCP Consulting, a management consulting firm with a special focus on SMEs and startups, and is the founder and CEO of the Human Capital Partner. He is a senior chartered accountant, management consultant, corporate trainer, leadership coach, strategist, lecturer, and a writer with a proven track record holding senior leadership positions at leading local as well as multinational organizations. He counts over 20 years of lecturing and corporate training experience, both in private and public sector organizations on strategic planning, leadership development, organizational transformation, change management, finance for non-finance managers, and emotional well-being through mindfulness. Chaminda is also a member of the Governing Council of CS Sri Lanka and has chaired and been a member of several committees of CS Sri Lanka. Mr. Chaminda, it's an honor to have you with us today. Over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, Mr. Chaminda, it's very clear.
Okay, great, thank you. First of all, I must thank KSA chapter of CS Sri Lanka for inviting me for this timely topic. And I hope everyone is safe in the current context. And I got the privilege of visiting the members in Saudi a few years ago and have some sessions with them, and glad to be connected again with most of you all. Let me start with the presentation straight away because we have limited time to discuss a lot of things. And give me a second to share my screen. Right, I believe the screen is visible. Now, we all are talking about the pandemic and the resultant impact of the pandemic to many industries. And if you look at in the Sri Lankan context, not only SMEs, everyone is affected, but if you look at globally, almost every business is affected some way or the other. So this is a common phenomenon to every business. Now, we in the Sri Lankan context have started to look at these SMEs more than ever before. If you look at from the government point of view and professionals and various stakeholders, you can see the amount of interest shown by all these parties for the SME sector. So there are reasons why there is attention to this segment, not only because they are at the bottom of the pyramid and need support, but also there are other reasons, both economic and social, why we should support them and groom them. So I'm going to discuss most of those topics today within this session. So I expect the active participation of the audience. You can raise your questions. Maybe we have a separate Q&A session at the end, and we can tackle them at that point. However, I would appreciate if you can also share some thoughts, insights, if you have any, when I'm done, so that it will be a good learning for me as well. Right. So before I start talking about the topic, I thought of leaving this thought with you at the beginning. And I don't intend to talk about the pandemic and all the stuff that we generally discuss. I think we have heard enough about the pandemic, the impact, economical and otherwise. You can go to internet and you can get enough information. So I don't want to waste your time in talking about those things in today's presentation, but I want to discuss more about the topic that we want to discuss. Right. This is a thought shared by the founder and the executive chairman of World Economic Forum. He says the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. And this is a very deep statement with a lot of insights in it, but I would only take what is relevant to the context that we have, that is in the Sri Lankan context especially, and with regard to SMEs. We have seen most of the organizations finding it difficult to operate and going down, but at the same time, we saw a lot of businesses, especially in all segments, right? And SME sector coming up very fast and doing very well, despite all the challenges that we talk about. So there are two reasons for that. One is there's a tremendous support from the environment, including the government, regulation, and other stakeholders to boost this segment. The second thing is there is more and more interest among the members or the participants in this segment to thrive during difficult times. And I think I must not reiterate the fact that being Sri Lankans, we are very good in our performance during difficult times. So we need that dose of challenge. You can recall how we performed during the war. You can recall how we recovered the country soon after the tsunami without bailing out from anyone. So the same way, I think with the pandemic, I can see there's a lot of energy coming out from the people from all levels, which is a positive thing and which also yield results as we can see. So what I'm going to cover today. So I'm going to cover several areas within the limited time that we have. Impact of the pandemic, SME sector in Sri Lanka, in a very, very summarized form, I'm going to discuss that part. Key issues we face at the national level in promoting the SME sector. Importance of promoting SMEs, that is the most important slide, I must say, among the lot. So why we need to promote SMEs and why it is important in the Sri Lankan context. Challenges faced by the SMEs, issues and deficiencies in SMEs that we can see, and the opportunities to support and boost SMEs. That's where we talk about how we can boost this segment. And finally, I'm going to talk about the role of professionals, how professionals can contribute to this endeavor like you all, and see how to leverage the merits of this situation and the untapped potential of this SME sector. Right. So the impact of the pandemic. So I'm not going to talk about the global impact or other aspects. I'm going to talk about the impact of the pandemic on the SME segment, SME related entities. So I look at it from a different perspective. There are few areas got affected in an SME business with the pandemic. The first one is the demand. So the demand of the businesses came down due to multiple reasons. I have taken the top reasons. One is the reduced consumer spend. So with the pandemic, most of the people lost their capacity to spend because they are also under pressure. Therefore, people stopped spending on certain things and they reduced spending. That affected the demand. Second thing is, most of the businesses could not operate as usual due to various reasons. For one thing, there was lockdown, curfew, and various other forced shutdown situations. And there were also situations like not having the adequate number of staff coming into work. And as a result, you had to reduce the number of operating hours in your business. So that affects your demand. Thirdly, most of the SME players could not deliver their goods to the customers because most of them were not ready with the technology to deliver. So the people have to visit the place and get the stuff. They did not have that luxury, then they lost the demand. On the supply side, from their side, when they produce goods to the market, there were disruptions to the supply chain for them so that they could not procure the required material and whatever the supplies that they want to sell. Secondly, the same matter, the reduced business hours affected especially most of the manufacturing entities. They could not operate in their full capacity. As a result, their production levels came down. Thirdly, the reduced number of workers in operation, because most of the factories, we found people getting infected. And as a result, you have to keep them at home, and there were connected issues. As a result, people could not report to work. So that affects your supply side or the production side. Then also you have an impact on your cash flow side. So the cash flow side impact is primarily due to the reduced sales, because when your operating cycle gets stuck, you lose your ability to generate cash. Then you happen to incur unplanned expenses due to the pandemic. You had to spend a lot on pandemic related matters to do the testing, disinfect and masks, etc. And most of these SME level people do not have sufficient savings with them. They don't have contingency funds. So that also affects their cash flows, because when you are in trouble, you can't draw from anywhere. You generally operate from your routine cash flow. Then also there was an impact on your business model. Why the business model was impacted? Lack of agility. Most of the SME sector people do not have flexible business model. They can't adjust to the situation. They are brick and mortar models, very rigid. So then they can't adjust. Secondly, they do not have proper governance system in place. So as a result, decision making is hampered, succession planning is hampered, various other arrangements that they're supposed to make, they can't arrange because their governance model is not that strong. Mostly owner managed or family managed businesses, it's very difficult for them to adjust or face this situation. Thirdly, the poor risk management methods, because most of these organizations don't even have a basic insurance. They don't have BCP, business continuity planning. So we've done research recently, a survey, we found that majority of them do not have any of these arrangements to manage the risk. They do not expect disruptions to their business. They always work on a positive note, and they expect always only good things to happen. They are not prepared to bad things or shocks. So these are some of the major areas why this pandemic has become a severe disruption for the business of SMEs. Now, if I move to the next topic, if you look at the size of the SME sector in Sri Lanka, I think these numbers most of you all must have heard many times, but I just repeat because for the completion of my presentation, around 52% of the GDP is contributed by the SMEs. Around 45% of the employment is contributed by SME sector institutions. And around 75% of enterprises, 75 to 80% of enterprises, businesses are within this category. And we also have around 35% of these businesses are owned by women. Despite the fact that we have about 52% representation in the total population, we have around 35% women representation in this segment, business ownership. Now, this does not tell the total story here. This only gives you some numbers. This gives you the situation at present, how they operate, what they contribute. This, I must tell you, is with all the difficulties they go through, all the inefficiencies that we find in this organization. We have seen in certain cases, certain survey findings say the productivity level of these SME sector institution in most of the cases, 50% or low in many cases. So they are heavily underutilized. They work under capacity. They work with a lot of inefficiencies inside this organization. So this level of contribution is coming to the economy with those kinds of issues, deficiencies, problems as well. Keep that in mind. Then, key issues why we cannot promote or why we don't see a boost in this SME segment in the Sri Lankan context as a whole. There are national level issues that needs to be handled, which are yet to be handled in most of the cases. So let me give you 10 such things that I have identified. First thing is, we do not have a national strategy to form an SME ecosystem. Because SMEs cannot be groomed without a total ecosystem with different components around them, supporting them. For that, there has to be a commitment from the state or the government level to have a national strategy. To date, I don't see that kind of a solid strategy being introduced or implemented. Secondly, we do not still have a common definition for SMEs. People sometimes ask, what are SMEs? If you go to UK, if you go to other part of the world, most of the countries, they have a clear definition of what SMEs are. And then all the institutions, government sector, private sector, banks, everyone is using that common definition when they categorize. But in the Sri Lankan context, if you go to central bank, it has one definition. If you go to IDB, there's another definition. If you want to go to banks, they have their own definitions of SMEs. So this will have a problem because at the national level, when you decide on policy matters and take actions, it's very difficult to identify the eligibility, and people get confused. And even the players in the market get confused when they want to operate with them because you can't define who actually belong to this category. So that's a national level issue. Then we do not have a national SME policy framework. We have different frameworks. We have industry framework, this and that, and all kinds of frameworks are there. But despite the fact that we have such a large percentage of a representation in the national economy, 52% of the GDP is represented by this segment as a whole, but we do not have a national policy framework for SMEs. And we do not have a single dedicated agency catering to this segment. We have so many ministries and ministers. We have so many departments, even in the government sector, but we do not have a single window to cater to this. And there were some attempts to do that. I have seen in budgetary proposals also, there were things like that, but I haven't seen any of them getting implemented yet. And another big problem we have in the country is we don't have a national database. We don't have a national database. We have several national bodies, state institutions catering to this segment at different levels, but none, I'm telling with confidence because I'm dealing with all these institutions. I've been questioning all these institutions. To date, I haven't been able to get that answer. None of these government institutions has a national database, a full database of their SME players. That's a big problem because we don't even have proper data for us to take decisions at policymaking level. This is not a difficult task though. We have enough channels to get it if you really want. So I once explained in a forum, and I have repeated that as well. If you go to any AG division, right, or any, let's say, GS division, we have 14,000 plus GS divisions. Each GS divisions, you have minimum 4 to 5 government employees, right? You have different roles. PHI is there. You have these nurses are there. Then you have the GS. Likewise, if you look at, there are 4 to 5 government officers. You can simply deploy these people to collect the information within that region and compile a national database, which is not a rocket science. But up to date, none has been done. Then a single window for government services. So when an SME player wants to get a thing done, want to launch a business, they have to go to different places from one organization to the other. I happen to meet many SME players who give up in the middle. I met one person who said he has been trying for 3 years. He has been trying to get some clearances from several government departments. He was sent from one place to the other, but things never moved. So finally, he decided to give up the venture. This is real situation. So we don't have that mechanism yet in place. And another problem that we find in the SME sector is that this is something that they face, especially when they want to secure government funds or whatever, the bank loans. They need to have some kind of an assurance or a guarantee from someone, because most of these people cannot provide a collateral or a security when they want to secure funds. For that, there has to be some support. So we don't have a credit guarantee institution yet, but there is an initiative by this CMA Sri Lanka. They have a COVID-19 SME Development Committee. I'm also part of that committee, run by Professor Lakshman Watawala. So there, the committee has made a proposal to the government, and the cabinet approval has already been taken. I think most of the steps are now underway. Hopefully, that will solve this problem very soon. Then we do not have SME rating agencies or credit bureaus. So we have different rating agencies for large organizations. This again is a problem for SME sector people to secure funds and get borrowings and various other support from various institutions. If there's a rating mechanism, it will create some kind of a credibility among these SME players so that they can confidently go and speak to any donor or fund provider, both locally and internationally. That's another mess. And we also don't have low cost and collateral-free lending institutions. We don't have dedicated institutions as such. There are certain countries who have SME-focused financial institutions, but in Sri Lanka, we have banks and finance companies catering to this segment, but very limited products. I am not saying no product, there are products, but I don't think the available products are good enough in terms of variety and volume to cater to this segment, to cater to the business models of all these SME sector players. So that's another area we have to fix at the national level. Finally, we do not have adequate equity financing options in the Sri Lankan market. So equity financing is probably, I think we all know, debt is not a solution for all their problems, because they don't want to get into this. Some people qualitatively do not want to have debts in their business. Therefore, if we can have equity financing options, I know there are small pockets and bits and pieces happening here and there. Sometimes we have these angel funding mechanisms working. There are certain programs with some few investors coming and select some players, SME players, and then they fund. That kind of arrangements are there, but we don't have a proper mechanism. But I must say again, we have CS Sri Lanka SME task force, right? There we have initiated a project. It's headed by Mr. Lakshman Abhisekara, and we have initiated a project to set up a fund, and for the time being, the government has also given their consent to support this equity fund. So we are hopeful of realizing it. We are working on it. If that kind of models come into the picture, these kind of issues will be solved to a certain extent. Now, I have selected 10 points here, but this is not the complete list. There are many other areas. And I have even written to the government. I have been doing this exercise for the last couple of years. Just for your information, this is an article I've written to Daily FT. I have given the date as well. This is the second article of a series of articles. Here I am highlighting the role of government in supporting this SME sector, because we saw there were a lot of budgetary relief provided by the government. Then I was arguing the fact that we need more commitment from the government beyond giving budgetary relief if you want to fix this SME segment. So you can see the names, the pictures of the people that time who were serving the SME segment. And I have put a note below that if you can read. So what I'm saying is the government has appointed new state ministers for different industries, right? We have about 15 plus different ministers to cater to different industries, but we don't have a single minister who is taking the overall responsibility on SMEs. Because my argument is that if you have industry specific ministers, they are responsible for the entire industry. This industry has both small players and big players. So there can be natural bias toward big players, or the bargaining power of the big players might be more. I think there was a disturbance for my presentation. Let me share it again. Right. This is where I was. So SME segment, I told earlier, is currently catering to 45% of the employment. Right? That is with whatever the level that we currently operating. But if we can promote this SME sector much more, we can get more and more people engaged into this segment. We know we have a problem with unemployment. We have a problem with graduates striking right on the road. They shout for jobs. So why can't we convert these graduates to entrepreneurs? Why can't we convert these students who are coming out of the education system but do not get into the university system? You can provide them with their own business model so that they can operate. So this employment generation at all levels, especially outskirts, this is a good tool. Secondly, this will also promote entrepreneurship. So employment generation is one. When you generate an entrepreneur, that means you get a person to initiate another venture. This is a good platform. I must tell you, in Sri Lanka, the total number of entrepreneurs as a percentage is slightly above 3%. Right? It's a very low percentage for a country like ours, which has a greater potential to grow entrepreneurship. So 3% is nothing when you look at the total population. So there's a huge potential for us to bring in more and more people, more and more entrepreneurs into the picture if we have a good program and commitment. Then we can see there are certain players in the market having monopolies, and they take that as an advantage to have a higher price and to discourage others coming up. So when we have more and more SMEs coming into the picture, that will also create healthy competition in the market. Then we know in most cases, we have good talent in those regional areas, outskirts, in the village. But sometimes this talent goes for a natural death, or they don't get an opportunity to deploy their talent. So SME is a good opportunity. If you have SMEs in those villages, those places, people within that area will join and contribute with their talents. And naturally, I don't have to explain this one. When you have more and more entities, you can get more and more volume of business coming to the picture. And then these SMEs are not necessarily businesses caters to the end customer. They can be the contributors or the suppliers for large players. I know if you look at foreign countries like Vietnam and China and all these places, even in Sri Lanka, we have it in small scale. Most of the large branded organizations outsource their production process, bits and pieces, to small players. If we have good chain of SME players with a quality manufacturing facility with quality control and various other requirements in place, they can be the suppliers for these large organizations. Most of these large organizations would be happy to do that if they have proper, reliable supply chain for them. And then another important area why we need to promote SMEs is to preserve traditional industries, local industries. We can see most of our traditional industries go to natural death because we don't have people to run them, because most of these business models have become outdated and they fail. They can't compete with most of these new tech-savvy industries. But even those traditional businesses can be now converted into hybrid models with modern technology and improved business models. If we can do that, we can preserve most of our traditional industries, local industries. We have a very proud heritage, very proud history for this country. We are losing most of these businesses because of this current competition. The next thing is we can preserve indigenous knowledge. We have mastered, proven methods and manufacturing processes. Unfortunately, the newer generations have no idea about this. They are always comfortable to hand over everything to technology. But if we have proper base, sufficient SME channels with grooming, education, and giving them some kind of a support and assurance about the sustainability of their business model, we can preserve most of this indigenous knowledge, which unfortunately we can see going for a natural death. And another problem, this is a social issue, I must say, social cultural issue. Most of the cases what we see is that the children of the villages, so those low income families, they migrate to urban areas, Colombo and various other places, and they find a job. Once they move out of that village, for one thing, there is a brain drain from the village so that you don't get wise people staying in the village to develop the village. Secondly, you are detaching those people from the family and the rest of the ecosystem, and that also creates other social issues. Then that the civilization or the progress of that society is hampered. And also that creates social issues. You distance yourself from your family. You have other issues, cultural issues as well. If we can have industries, SMEs operating within their villages, within their hometowns, then you don't have to let good people live in the village. They can contribute to the village while progressing for themselves as well, being an entrepreneur. finally, this is a very good remedy tool to alleviate poverty. Right? People at the bottom of the pyramid, they are always expecting something to come from somewhere. So we always giving them fish, not the fishing rod. So this is giving fishing rod to them, not the fish. So people are used to that. So if we can give them the knowledge and the rest of the facilities, probably we can create them to be self-sufficient. So these are, in my view, 10 points why we should consider promoting SMEs, and it will have an impact on the national level. Right. Let me now go to the next point. What are the challenges faced by SMEs in the Sri Lankan context? So I talked about the importance, but why can't they grow? One of the main things, lack of markets, right? Lack of markets. So these people can't find their marketplaces for their production. Some people have the ability to produce, but they can't find market. Then access to production inputs, that is raw material mostly. So some people, I can see even young generation, they coming out of these technical colleges and various places with some knowledge. They know, they have the know-how and they want to start something, but they don't have access and privilege to source the relevant inputs in all cases. And they can't import like many large players for certain industries. There has to be a mechanism. If there is certain material that is required to be imported, there has to be a mechanism from a large scale, somebody import, maybe the government or someone, and then they distribute or release them in small quantities to these people who require. So we don't have such mechanism. We have here and there very disorganized manner. Lack of access to low-cost finance, that I have deliberated earlier as well. This is the known factor. So that's a challenge that these people have. Then another problem that they have is when they want to go to the government institutions, there's corruption and red tapeism. And I think I don't need to elaborate it. We all know what I mean and what the challenges coming from that. Then multiplicity of taxes and levies. And in fact, I have suggested in an article also and with certain forums, why can't we introduce a tax system and a legal system specifically catering to the SME segment? You can identify the features of the SMEs who want to cater to with those legal systems and tax system. Let's say from the date of commencement up until the SME player achieves a certain state in their business, you will have zero taxes and you will have flexible arrangements on the legal front and various other statutes, that is to operate within that domain until you stand on your own feet. Once the business is at a particular stand, a position, a strength, then you can go and harvest from them. You can even charge a higher taxes. That doesn't matter, so that they're strong enough to pay that and afford it. But what happens now is that there are certain legislations that prevents people progress, and that becomes a hindrance for them to move. And as a result, you must have heard that in the SME segment, startup segment, as high as 75% to 90% of the businesses go out of business or vanish within the first 3 years. So if we have a flexible, conducive legislature or tax system, that will be a good plus for these people to survive and continue and pass that difficult period. Then poor access to affordable workspace, that's another problem. So most of these people, they can't afford buildings and workplaces for them to do their workshops. I know most of these manufacturing SMEs, startups, they start somewhere in the backyard, sometimes in the bedroom, sometimes in the kitchen. They try to find a location for themselves and they operate there. And sometimes these environments, facilities do not support the required infrastructure to maintain the level of quality that they need to come up with, especially for certain products like food items and etc. So these people do not have that ability. We have enough spaces for people who can afford. We have these renting spaces, flexible offices, all these latest concepts are available. That is for high-end market, high-end people who can afford it. But these kind of people, it's very difficult to find that kind of facilities for them to operate. Then low access to information. That again is a problem that they have because they don't have data. They don't have information to understand the market, the challenges, what to do, what not to do. You can see even in current context, how many places you can find certain farmers have excess production and then they throw it away because they don't have information about the market demand, the movements of the market, the information about the areas where the production is lacking so that these people can shift their product to those places. They don't have this information. They don't take decision based on data. They simply decide and do. You must have seen in the last couple of months, there was a big shortage of turmeric. And when that message goes, everyone started growing turmeric without having any information. Then you end up having excess production. So we don't have that kind of quality information even locally to take those decisions. That is very disturbing for their operation. And inability to get legal protection. That's another problem we have in the SME sector. I myself have witnessed several SME players whose new inventions have been stolen by other people. So they come up with a bright idea, they come up with an innovation. Some people can simply get it and reproduce. These people don't have the legal immunity. So I have suggested to initiate a mechanism from the government, if possible, to have intellectual property rights simplified and have some mechanism to identify these people, low-end people who have come up with these new ideas, innovations. Don't wait till they come and do the process and get it because these people don't understand. Identify them proactively, go and protect their intellectual properties. We don't have that kind of mechanism. I know that there are small scale, individual level, certain people give an attempt, but it has to be a mass scale project or initiative. Next, lack of access to technology. I think this is understandable. Everyone understands this. At the SME level, they use very low technology for two reasons. One is they can't afford technology. The second reason is they have no literacy. They lack literacy. They don't understand it. Therefore, they are out of using some of the technological solutions they can use in their business. The last point is inability to afford or not having access to R&D. Unlike the large organizations, these people don't have the luxury. They can come up with a bright idea, but they want to be able to test it, try it. In fact, recently I met a guy who has innovated a lot of products. He has innovated a particular item, but because he can't afford the raw material, because he doesn't have the ability to invest or spend on money to get the required material, he has done it using a clay. But the real production has to be done on steel, right? And for that, you need to do a mold. To do the mold itself, it costs him around 5 lakhs. He can't afford this, right? Then it stopped at that point. So if there is a mechanism here where you allow the small timers to come and test their ideas and do their R&D without additional burden or cost to them, maybe you can have an understanding or arrangement with them. You do your R&D free of charge. Once your product is successful, the day you go to the market, you start paying something back for us for the service we provided. There has to be some kind of a mechanism to support them. Otherwise, most of the bright ideas die halfway because of these things. Then issues and deficiencies you find within SMEs. What I mentioned now is the support that they are supposed to get from the outside environment and the government and the rest of the players and have become challenges. These points that I'm going to unfold now are the problems that I myself have witnessed with my experience, and it's already available in the market for many cases if you look at the list. First thing is family ties. Most of these SMEs are family businesses. And therefore, the players in the business are family members, and you have emotional attachments. As a result, you tend to take emotional decisions. And you don't deploy the right people, professionals into the business. So that hinders the progression of the business, and that sometimes create unnecessary issues as well. I have come across several instances in my own dealing with the SME sector customers, that the husband and wife, they fight each other for matters because they are not competent, educated, qualified. They take decision based on their gut feeling. So they fight for their own opinion. As a result, the business is suffering. Then financial mismanagement. Lack of financial intelligence is another major problem in this segment, because most of the people are getting into this not because they have knowledge, but because they are compelled to start something with whatever they know. So the financial mismanagement is another problem that we have in this segment. Then lack of basic business capacity. Basic business capacity. So KSA is not Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is knowledge, skill, and attitude. Knowledge, skill, and attitude. Because most of these SME players do not have the required basic skill. Certain leadership skills are missing. As a result, if you get a smart fellow in the organization, that person start taking advantage of his talent, and sometimes mislead the owner and take advantage of it. I have come across situations where I have to say with disappointment that I have come across accounting professionals who become the smartest guy in the organization, stealing from the organization because the owner can't understand the finances. This is very bad, but that is happening because the owner doesn't have the capacity to understand the matters. And lack of qualified personnel in the business. You don't have professionals in those organizations. Mostly, as I told you, your family members or friends or relatives or villagers, whoever get together, you start the business. And then poor record keeping. Most of these SME players don't maintain books of accounts. Some don't maintain any records. So this is another problem because they don't know where their business is heading. Then lack of standardization of products. That is about the quality of the products. When you start developing the product, you don't improve your product. You keep on doing this forever. So I'll give you one example. When I went to a entrepreneurship workshop in Kurunagala area, I met a lady. When I asked her what's her business, she said, I'm doing sweets, bulto, toffee, cakes, and all this stuff. So I asked, how long have you been doing it? She said, I've been doing this for about 20 plus years now. So she prepares it and put it to shops. I asked, what's your brand? She doesn't have a brand. No name for the product. She just started it long time ago. She still does the same thing the same way. Now, this is the problem. So they don't have standardization, they don't have quality, they don't improve. As a result, they stay where they are. And her problem, she came to me and asked, so my problem is, my business I started 20 plus years ago, but still I'm at the same place. I can't see a growth in my business. Then I realized the reasons why she is not growing because they are innocent. They don't have the understanding, knowledge how to move up in the value chain. Then founder dependency is another major problem in most of these businesses. The owner takes the upper hand. Owner controls almost everything in the business. So therefore, if something happens to the owner, if the owner falls sick, the entire business is getting disrupted. That's a problem. There's no succession. And the key person risk, I think needless to say again, most of these SME sector businesses, sometimes you find there's one person who runs almost everything. Sometimes this may be the first employee. Sometimes it may be your best friend. Sometimes it may be your cousin or whoever, right? You give that person, you run everything. You be the HR person, you be the finance person, you be the sales person. So the moment that guy goes out for whatever the reason, the entire business gets stuck. That's a key person risk you have. And then poor governance and risk management. So I have explained at the beginning, but these two are, but this is something that we see in most of these organizations. They don't have proper governance structure or risk management model. As a result, they don't have immunity to withstand, especially this kind of a shock. Finally, lack of digital literacy that affected heavily for most of these SME players, even under pandemic situation, they could not migrate to digital and operate because they didn't have that knowledge. And sad to say that in most of the cases, I have found many businesses, don't even know how to open a Facebook page. They don't operate with Facebook at least, which is available free. So these are the problems we have. Next, how we can support or boost SMEs. First, I must say, we must, I'm looking at national level holistically. We must increase the volume. I told you in Sri Lanka, we have only 3% or more as entrepreneurs. We need to bring in more people into the scene. We need to get those who come to the road and shout asking for jobs. Why can't they start their own venture? Why can't we educate them? The problem may be because they have earned a degree and they only know what to do based on what they have learned. They lack that understanding, knowledge, know how to start a business. Maybe we can have some kind of an arrangement, figure out how to get them on this side. And if you look at advanced level, right, around 600,000 sit for O-level and 300 plus sit for A-level. Now from O-level to A-level, about 50% there's drop out. They have studied up to O-level. They have knowledge, right? So 300,000, around 300,000 is there. Then from A-level, out of that 300, let's say for argument's sake, that is more than that now. So 300, only about 100,000 get through the exams or get the ability or the qualification, minimum qualification to enter into a university. But out of that, around 30,000 get the university admission because of the resource limitation. So again, around 70,000 out of that 100 can't get into the university system. So if you look at from O-level upwards, out of the 600,000 who sat for O-level, up to the university entrance, only 30,000 make it to the university. There's 570,000 annually, I'm talking about, annually, going into the market, jobless. So if we have a mechanism, we can easily bring at least certain percentage of them into the entrepreneurship for SMEs. It's a big impact to the national economy if we can do that. But for that, we need to have awareness and we need to promote entrepreneurial culture. I must say, sadly, again, so I have written, I have spoken, I have discussed enough this matter. Our media can do a lot here. As much as they promote Indian films, teledramas to spoil the minds of people, why can't they allocate half an hour of their time at least once a week to promote entrepreneurs, build entrepreneurship culture, and plant a seed in the minds of these people to come up with their own ventures and support? It can make a big impact. So that is something that we require in this country. Improve productivity. I told you, even the existing SMEs and entrepreneurs who are available in the market, they are operating at very low capacity with a lot of inefficiencies. If we can improve their productivity, capacity building, technology, all that can come into the picture. With the existing pool of entrepreneurs and SMEs, we can maximize their output. So imagine with all these, we currently have 52% contribution to the GDP. Imagine we improve 10% of it. It's a big impact, right? Then we can do value addition. We can help them to up the value chain. Most of these SME players operate at the raw level, right? Even exporters operate at that level. If we can have some support for them to improve their product quality and bring it to the next level, there is requirement for R&D support here. That's very important to have it. Then we have to create markets. I told you most of the people lack the market access. We can create markets. We can help them to find new markets. We can connect them to markets. If we can have that, that's another area we have to support. Then building ecosystem. I told you, to support SMEs, you need ecosystem connecting different parties, suppliers, service providers coming together to support this segment. Then improve governance. So that is very important, to build immunity to absorb shocks and to ensure efficient decision making and succession of the business. We need proper governance models. That is lacking in this. And I told you earlier about this SME task force. Another task that we are trying to do is to build this governance system of these SME organizations. Then grooming and mentoring. Very important. I told you, most of the people come into the businesses without knowing anything about the business. They only know buying and selling or whatever, but they don't have any idea. They lack knowledge. They lack the business acumen. They lack communication skills. They lack a lot of things. So you need friends, mentors to support them, handhold them until they are stronger to stand on their own. Another initiative that we have done with the task force is mentoring program. I'll explain you later when I come to that page. Then the collaborations. We should not let these people operate alone. We can find friends for them, other businesses. We can connect them to the value chain of the business that they are operating. We can connect them with the large players of the market. We can create their own networks, industry groups. So that collaborations will allow them to share knowledge and become more stronger and build confidence among them, so that it will help them to move up in the ladder without isolating themselves and suffering. Then the regulatory framework need to be improved. I told you certain areas, taxation, labor laws, and various other regulations that are available in the country. I think it's important that we have to have some kind of relaxation. And in fact, I suggested if we can have an SME Act. We don't have SME Act. There are certain countries, they have SME Act. That act is there to protect and support the SMEs. We don't have such arrangement in Sri Lanka. Then funding. That's one of the main things in the end we need, because these people need funding to grow. So I happen to meet a lot of SME players who are now doing well. They can operate, but for them to go to the next level, they need funding to expand. Some people, although they have sufficient capacity to grow and assets with them, they don't want to go to a bank and borrow and do that. They are expecting capital to come. They don't mind sometimes getting a joint venture partner, someone to come and help them without having debts. So we need to have this funding arrangement. That's another area we can support. So I gave you this list where we can support to boost these SMEs at the national level, large scale, from a holistic perspective. Now I'm going to talk some points, again 10 points, how people like you, professionals, can, this is not 10 points, this is more than 10 points I have collected, because I can add to the list. The slide space is limited. I have limited to 15 or something, as I remember. Right. So this is how you professionals can support. And this is where the opportunity is. If you really are keen to support this segment, it is not only a help I'm talking about. There are enough viable business models that you can create as professionals, a win-win business model. While you support SMEs, you can also grow. Knowledge and best practice sharing. That's one of the easiest way you can engage with them. You can impart knowledge, and knowledge sharing is one of the key areas, which I am also engaged in the current position in my capacity. Market intelligence and research support. I told you they don't have this. If you can have this market intelligence and research support provider, you can have your own form or whatever. People can come and access, maybe at a reasonable fee. It doesn't matter. So it works. MIS and data analytics support, right? I will not explain everything. I think you can understand. I'll go through wherever I think I need to explain, I'll explain. Then value proposition and business model design. That's another big problem in this segment. They can't understand how to derive their value proposition and how to develop their business model rationally. Sometimes they lost in the middle, what they want to sell and what they want to communicate to the market. They confuse themselves, and as a result, they lose their market. And tools to identify capability gaps, right? That is to do some kind of analysis, some kind of survey, some kind of assessment tools to identify gaps. Product advisory specific to SMEs, right? How can you support these people to fine-tune their products and develop it? Then opportunity seizing tools and solutions. That is for them to tap how they identify different opportunities open up to them and how you connect with your networks. Strategy development, customer management, the CRMs and etc. We have these kind of tools available for large organizations, but you can have a simpler version available for small players. Then delivery channels. That's another these people I told you with the current pandemic, they are unable to cater to the customers because they can't deliver to those steps. Another area we can help them. Accounting and business process outsourcing, I think this is something that we already do as accounting professionals. This is an area we still have scope to grow. And process automation, these are not costlier ones I'm talking about. Simple things you can do for SMEs so that they can reduce the dependency on humans and incapable, unqualified people. You can introduce certain simple automated solutions. Capacity building, grooming and mentoring, I told you, that is another area we can look at. And business referral models and network building. So we know we have this established model for certain mid-tier and high-end customers like BNI type of models. So can we have similar models available for SMEs? It's another option to available. Then equity financing and funding solutions. That's another big area. I know most of the overseas people still, I'm also getting certain personal calls from people in overseas because they have earned their money, they have savings, and they also sometimes see there are, they're looking for places to invest, right? Stock market, this and that. Sometimes banks are not the best place in the current context because the rates are low and all. They look for opportunities. These are good opportunities for you all to come and invest. You find a good, viable SME player and become a equity partner in that business, and you can grow with the person because you have the know-how. You can give your technical support, and you can grow the person as well. There are enough and more opportunities in this space. So in simple terms, what I'm saying is, imagine with 3% entrepreneurs and such a low level of efficiency, if we operate this SME segment and contribute 52% to the GDP, we can do wonders if we give a little push to this segment and increase the volume and optimize the production capacity. So I think I leave it, you all accounting professionals, you can do your own maths, see the amount of difference you can make if you really tap into this segment and do the right thing. I have given you enough seats to now look at that. Finally, I also put a slide here because we already have chartered accountants here. CA Sri Lanka initiated this CA Sri Lanka SME task force last year as an initiative to support the economy by empowering SMEs. Because when we looked at how we can support in this needy hour for the country, we identified that SME being the backbone of the country is the most affected segment. So how can we as chartered accountants help this segment? We looked at, and then we identified this and we formed this committee, and we have a lot of chartered accountants working with us today in this committee. There's a Facebook page. Please go and at least like and join this and spread the news, whoever will benefit out of it. We have started a lot of good work, but unfortunately our work also have been hampered due to this pandemic, but yet we are operating. We started a mentoring model. We started the financial literacy program. We started webinars, seminars, knowledge sharing sessions. And as I told you, we have already discussed with the government to have some funding arrangement, equity model. And there are various other initiatives we are working on. And I cordially invite all of you to take part in this worthy cause and national endeavor. This is a voluntary force that we have created. People like you all can do a lot of things here. And this will also open up a lot of avenues for you all to connect with other professionals, bodies, and also SME players. Sometimes at some point, some of these SME players you encounter might come up with a business proposition so that you can also invest and become a partner like that. So we will discuss all these things in the days to come. This is my message to all of you. And also there are other chambers in the country that are working for these things. I'm also part of one chamber, Sri Lanka Chamber of Small and Medium Industries. And there are other chambers because most of these groups work voluntarily. They don't have financial capability to do certain things. So it will be a good opportunity for people like you who want to contribute to the country in different ways. Please see how you can contribute to these units, these chambers, these task forces and places. They will do the work. You will have to give whatever the support that you can give in different forms. I think with that, I will conclude the session for today. I hope you got sufficient content to think about it. This is just, I must say, these are just seeds I have given you. You have to plant something in your head and think about something, elaborate on it and build something on it to do something better for SMEs and for your motherland. Thank you very much for the opportunity given by this KSA chapter and your patience hearing. Now I am happy to take up any clarifications, questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chamin, and this was very well detailed and well thought out presentation. I think a lot of work gone behind it. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's really good, very concise to the point. You know, it addressed all the issues faced by SMEs. So there are a few questions. Before taking the questions from the participants, I have a few questions here. So, Chamin, you mentioned about a very low number of entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka, and the percentage is about 3%. Actually, there are very little startups coming up with new and innovative products and business ideas. Of course, there are startups coming up in Sri Lanka. I know people open up restaurants or communication shop and so on. But if you see the innovativeness and the creativity of those businesses, you know, it's not up to the global standard. There's definitely a lack of creativity in entrepreneurship and business in Sri Lanka. Let's say if someone opens up a shop and successful, and the next door guy also wants to do the same thing, you know. So how do we create a culture of creativity and innovation from school level? I mean, I think that is where we have to start. Do you think our education system also is one of the reasons for lack of entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka?
Absolutely, absolutely. I always say, I use this basic example, right? Look at an infant, small kid, right? How creative are they, right? The fantastic ideas they come up with, the type of questions they ask 100 questions about certain things. We sometimes don't have answers to those questions. They are very inquisitive. They are very creative. They are open-minded. But what happens is, the day you start schooling, you kill all that creativity. You say, okay, A for apple, B for bat, C for cat. That's what you say. Even if I ask from a 50-year-old adult, tell me a word from A, they say apple. There are enough words from A, but you still say apple, right? So you are taught to listen, memorize, and vomit. And if you ask so many questions in the class, you are the bad boy in the class, right? So we kill the skill of questioning. We kill the skill of thinking beyond the normal. Sometimes when we ask certain questions, people think, oh, you are asking stupid questions. The people who thought stupid things made a difference. If Arthur C. Clarke didn't say that you can set up something in the orbit and you can communicate, it sounds a very stupid decision, but that was the seed for the satellites, right? So my point is that there has to be a mechanism in the education system to foster entrepreneurship, creativity, thinking. That's number one. The second point I am seeing is that because this curriculum-based, syllabus-based model, one size fit for all model won't work, right? You put everyone in the same class and teach the same subject and same syllabus. Second thing is, how many of us have seen in the school that they ask, what do you want to be at the end of the day, right? Once you grow up, when we ask from our children, all are trained to say either a doctor or an accountant, right? Or lawyer. But how many of them say, I want to be a carpenter, I want to be a farmer? So we ridicule them if we say so. But you know, today, a Kottubas earn more than a chartered accountant. Why? Because dearth of skill. Dearth of skill, we don't have many. So whoever the guy available, they pay. That's a demand and supply. So if we identify the skill of the student and their taste and interest at that stage, at early stage, and groom them and provide the seeds for them to grow, rather than following the same syllabus up to O-level or whatever and then fail the exam and become a failure. If we identify at early stages the skills and the talent that person has, if this guy is failing in maths every time, if this guy is failing in science every time, you figure out whether this guy is good in anything on handwork, right? Make him a carpenter. Start teaching the person that subject and make him a carpenter before he wastes his half of the life trying to figure out the rest of the subject that he can understand and pass. We don't have that model. And that's the problem, I think. If we have thinkers, practical thinkers, educators who understand this need, I think we can have more entrepreneurs than more people. We are always teaching our students to learn and work under someone. So that has to be changed. I think we can do a lot, but I know it's not easy. you have to start somewhere in a small scale at least. I'm for it. I'm for it. You're on mute.
Yeah. Chamji, you mentioned about lack of funds as one of the challenges faced by SMEs. I mean, it is not only in Sri Lanka, but everywhere in other countries also SMEs face a challenge of lack of funds. I would like to, relate this to Sri Lankan context and Sri Lankan professionals working abroad like us. And there are enough professionals who have worked in Middle East and Australia and so on, and have some saving now, and they want to do something with that money. But most of them think that the situation is not very encouraging, and the rate at which rupees depreciating, sorry, you might not get enough return. So what kind of encouragement you can give to people like us who are abroad and want to come back to Sri Lanka and do something for the country and invest? How is the situation? How encouraging it is? What are the risk levels?
Okay, let me tell you this story. So when I left my job, I was doing very well with my career as a chartered accountant. I was a CFO. I was earning a good buck. My income was certain. I was fine. But I decided to quit my job and started something on my own without any idea how much I'm going to earn, where I'm going to end up. Still today, I'm getting the blames from many people for that stupid decision from their way, because I'm taking a risk. And that's the fundamental problem that we need to solve if us accountants want to get into this side, because we are very conservative, right? We are very conservative. We are risk averse. We always do our maths and we want everything to be certain. So we don't want to take risk. So if you want to get into the entrepreneurship side, or if you want to look at this side, first of all, you have to create your mindset, set up your mindset appropriately. This is a risk-taking exercise. You should be able to take that risk. You should be able to play the game and should be confident that you will somehow come out with it. Because the reason why I told you that, one of the reasons why people still are reluctant and hesitating to think about investment or supporting, they analyze the numbers, look at the environment. So we are very good in doing pest analysis, right? Pestle analysis, SWOT analysis, all these analysis we do, it doesn't give us the required comfort to go and invest. But none of these SME players or investors, entrepreneurs who have now revolutionized the world have done those analyses when they come up with their ideas. They took the risk and they somehow made it happen. I think that is number one. So you should be able to prepare, right? You should prepare yourself first from mind. I am going to invest something in a business. Of course, you don't just blindly go and invest. You do your homework, do your due diligence, be comfortable about the business model and the people and the rest of it and the potential, all that, and then take a risk and then invest, and you need to support and grow. And we are finance professionals. We don't keep all our eggs in one basket. So we will do we take something that we can digest, go step by step, right? So we need to have that mindset first, and then there are enough opportunities. I told you, we have people who have innovated things with the patent license, but they don't have funds to go beyond. I have met a guy who has done a lot of innovations. This guy has 15 patents, but this guy doesn't have money to invest and run his businesses. So if we have the appetite and that mindset, there are opportunities. And mind you, we have to also understand that as an entrepreneur or smart investor, you should not go and invest when everyone else is doing the same. Then you are not a winner. You must take the opportunity when others don't see it. That's where the difference is. If everyone is waiting till the time is up, no one will invest, then everyone will rush. And then again, you are in the same soup. So you need to now figure out your battles, where you can invest. There are enough opportunities if you want to, you need to tap. That's the message I want to give. Of course, it comes at a risk, but at the same time, if you play the game right, the opportunities endless, and sky's the limit for your growth.
Thanks for answering that question, Kamid. I think we have a couple of more questions from the participant. I'll take one of the questions from the participant. One of the participants is asking, can you please elaborate us with few examples from other countries which take care of SME sector very well? Also, any possibility for Sri Lanka to adopt same strategy?
Yeah, because if you look at even Malaysia, China, China has a different model altogether. But if you even look at even UK kind of developed markets, they have very good models, right? Even if you look at this, what you call Vietnam, right? Indonesia, all other countries. I'm not saying Sri Lanka does not have, but Sri Lanka, there's a lot to coordinate, right? Because unfortunately, we have to accept that our political will fall, right? So most of the things, when you politicize, you don't get the real spirit out of this. So you have to get rational coordinated effort. That's why I told you, even among ministries, we don't have coordination, right? If you are keen and committed towards it, then you can do. That's why we don't have a single policy covering SMEs. We don't have an SME Act. Therefore, different ministries, different ministers, different departments, they do what they think is the right thing from their side. Therefore, holistically, nothing moves. So one ministry will come and do a little bit of work, another ministry will come and do a little bit of work. So why can't these ministries share the value chain, right? One ministry, maybe two, will go and do the capacity building. You prepare, you identify the life cycle of an entrepreneur, right? Education needs to take care of one side. Trade needs to take care of another side. Vocational training another side. So likewise, you identify the value chain. Each minister and ministry take care of each segment and build this pipeline. The other thing is, we always think about this overnight work, right? Most of, if you look at these countries, they never did all these things in 1 year or with few months. There has to be a long-term plan. So if you look at the education, what we talk about today, the results will come in 25 years time, maybe, we don't know. But we have to have a solid policy and consistent approach, which is lacking in our case. Certain countries prepare their plans for 50 years. We can't even have a plan for 1 year. When the minister changes, plan changes, right? To be honest with you.
Yeah, that is very important point, because the policy consistency is a major issue in Sri Lanka, because changing governments, even changing ministers result in changing policies. You know, the big corporates have legal departments, professionals who can advise on legalities of these policy changes and so on. But, you know, SMEs don't have that capacity and knowledge workers or even legal support to explain them, okay, because of this changing policy, the impact to your business is this. So how do you think SMEs can cope up in such environment? How can they keep themselves updated on these policy changes?
No, I think that's Usman, that's an area that people like us can help them. That's what I'm saying, because they have no idea. They have no idea. Sometimes, do you know that I came across some people, they don't even know some of the relief measures available to them. They don't know about these loan moratorium facilities, how to get it, what is their role, and more than the banking system, if you go to places like IDB and various other institutions, there are low-cost funding arrangements. There are loan facilities for certain industries. They don't even know those things. Right? I think that's why I told you, in terms of knowledge and information, there is a big gap. That is something that we all can support these people. If you identify, let's say, you ask about the opportunities, there are enough models that we can work on, operate, if there are interested, because I don't want to discuss in an open forum like this nitty-gritties, but if there are people who are really interested, I have enough ideas we can discuss. Maybe you all can get together in small groups, and whoever is interested can come together. We can have a Zoom or whatever. We'll discuss. There are enough models we can work on, which are win-win, while supporting the country and the SME. You as the party involved in can also benefit financially and otherwise. There are models. It's just that we need to do it right, because as somebody asked earlier, there are proven models in other countries we can simply replicate them. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? We can replicate in our context. And there are people who have done it. There are people who have done it even in Sri Lanka, and chartered accountants living abroad. There are certain people who have done it.
Also, the venture capital scene in Sri Lanka is also like not that grown, right? So, what do you think? What is the way forward? Do you think it's growing in near future?
No, the thing is, I think I don't know. I might not be correct on this. This is my perception. One thing is that we don't have enough talent in the country to run that type of models, right? So we don't know how it operates, because venture capital is not necessarily meant for SMEs. That is for large, startups and big these things. So we don't have enough models and people institutionalization for that. That's one thing. And the second thing is, for international donors or investors, our market is too small. Right, our market is too small to consider that kind of, because they do even, I happen to engage with some of these people, intermediaries. So I get calls saying, okay, we have people who want to invest, but minimum investment is $10 million. So $10 million, you imagine the amount, right? $10 million into 200, right? So 2 billion plus. So that kind of investment, you can't think of SMEs at all. But otherwise, those people, they don't get enough return and they don't get that scale, because they are better off investing elsewhere than investing here. But Sri Lanka, what we can do is we can get those principles of a venture capital model and replicate that in the SME segment. That can be done. But for that, we need people who believe in that and who have the appetite and who have the expertise to run that model. That is possible. This is an opportunity.
I think we have almost reached the end of the session, because time has run so fast. I think before winding up, just final words, Mr. Hamida. Now you have pointed out several national level issues which are hampering the growth of SMEs. Do you think, is there someone or some institute or even at a government level, there is a genuine effort to work on this front and improve SMEs during their, not only during their tenure, but a long lasting change, which will give us positive result in 20 years, 25 years, even after 50 years, because all these, the solutions and plans coming up short term. And you remember, I'm sure you must be remembering that even during last regime, we had a national export strategy, which was drafted for the period 2018 to 2022. But I don't know where is that strategy now. Do you think there's a genuine long-term effort made to address these issues?
I think the answer, you already know the answer, I think, when you ask the question. But when you ask me, I can't specifically pinpoint, because, I think it's more than the department or the institution, it's the people, right? So if you get the right person in the right place, you can do wonders. You need to have, because I think one of the things we need to understand, unlike other businesses or large investment that we talk about, when you want to serve this segment, these SMEs, one of the main ingredients you should have is your passion. You should be passionate about supporting someone else and groom that fellow and build that. Without that, if you only look at money or various other interests, you can't do this. That's one of the problems that we have in this segment. So you hardly find that kind of people working in the government sector, working towards it. But there are few individuals I know who are trying to make a difference, in certain instances, because I am working with almost all these government sector organizations and ministries in my capacity, not only as this guy, because I'm as a semi-focused consultant, I work with all of them. So I'm in some of these committees as well, so that I know. So as a matter of fact, I do not, most of the cases, get involved in these discussions and meetings where politicians take part. That's, as a policy, I don't do that, because when I don't see a genuine effort, or I don't see that is coming out, there's no point in wasting your time. So you work with the individuals who actually can make a difference. And for that matter, I always encourage, I am not discriminating the government departments. But I have seen, I'll give you one example. There was one government institution, there was a chairman of that institution who had a genuine interest to set up something. He got down foreign investor to develop a system and implement without any cost to the government. But when this guy want to implement that, there were a lot of resistance coming within for no reason, right? And then they came up with various other arguments why it should not happen. So I always encourage, if you really want to do something, do it offline, right? You engage with a party who is not politically affiliated, and then you be strong in that model. Then you can work with other departments or institutions. That's why one place I can recommend you, like professionals, the CA Sri Lanka SME Task Force is one, which is voluntarily coming forward to do this, but then we have expanded our wings to work with other institutions, and we're working with almost all the government agencies. Another thing I currently work with is the SME Chamber. The chamber is non-governmental, non-political institution set up based on an act of parliament. That's the oldest and the apex body. So therefore, I am also comfortable working with them because they are not politicals. So likewise, I try to identify that kind of independent bodies and work with them. There you have the consistency, no political interference, and you can work as professionals. And if you're genuine about it, you can get the benefit out of it. And apart from that, if anyone is interested, I can personally give some more leads and connections. We can do that offline if you want. That's fine.
Thank you, Jaminda, for your time. And I think the subject you touched upon today is very relevant in today's Sri Lankan context, and a very important one, and very important one for the professionals who are away from Sri Lanka and looking at the developments in Sri Lanka. And thank you very much for the time and a well thought out and a well done presentation. And I hope that we will be able to have you soon in person in Saudi for another big session. And I hope that the situation will come back to normal, because when we bring you down here, I mean, we can't have 5-10 people, you know, so it must be a large gathering. So hopefully it will happen very soon. Thank you all the participants who joined with us today from Sri Lanka, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and even Riyadh and Dammam. And I thank all the colleagues and members of other professional bodies. Thank you everyone for joining with us today. Please feel free to leave your feedback on the chat box. We will soon meet with another session. Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, KSA chapter, for inviting me. It's my pleasure. I do all this out of my passion, because if anything can be done to serve this SME segment, I'm more than happy. I am available, and I hope that you will also see how best you can contribute in whatever the small way. Please do so. Even by sharing some knowledge, you can do that. And in the end, yes, we'll see how it goes, and I'm looking forward to see you again. As he said, we'll see how it goes. We hope for the best, and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.